What is the most hurtful thing a medical professional has ever said to you? Doctor, glances at my genitals, you have herpes. Me, but I've never had sex. Doctor, oh, stop crying. I diagnose this all the time. It's pretty common. Me, but aren't you going to at least do a test? Doctor, fine. But it's going to hurt and it's going to show herpes. Indeed. It was an allergic reaction to a medication. Well, now you know why. My back hurts, back herpes. I have chronic headaches. Did you say? Chronic herpes? My nose is run. Herpes. Even if it was herpes. Testing for type is important. HSV1 and HSV2 are not able to be distinguished visually. It's almost as if she was a terrible doctor. I had an ulcer in the vulva area. I was pretty careful as a teenager, so I was shocked. I went in. They biopsied. And the doc gave me the "prepare yourself for herpes," even though I didn't hit any of the typical symptoms. I was devastated. Results come back completely clear of any STD because they ended up testing pretty much all of them, and it was due to an autoimmune disease. As a teenager, I had a bump on my lip that wouldn't go away. Mostly because I kept picking at it. My mom took me to the doctor and he gave me this long talk about cold sores and herpes. Once he was done with the lecture, he said, however, "This is a spider bite." Me with my pants down. Getting checked for a hernia. Drive, are you able to get an erection? Me, that is an erection. You call that a penis? It's an innie. And then the doctor dropped his pants and said, "This is an erection." And op clapped and gave the doctor $100 in addition to the medical bill. Thank you all for not asking why I had an erection then. When I was 16/17, a new doctor of mine checked for a hernia. Afterwards she says, "And you'll probably grow a few more inches, don't worry." I wasn't worrying about that before, but now I am. Thanks doc. I went to the doctor's office as a child because I was terribly ill and throwing up. The doctor asked if school exams were coming up. I said yes. She simply said HMM. That explains it then, and then she rolled her eyes. Should have thrown up on her. One of my favorite experiences was when I violently threw up in the triage room while the nurse was thinking that I don't look sick enough. I know other people who have had pretty bad experiences with doctors, nurses not believing them because they don't look bad enough. Or they didn't throw up at the hospital. I had a good doctor but bad parents. I had a weird cough and was always tired. My parents kept telling me to stop faking. Well, finally I demanded to see a doctor. I had a serious case of pneumonia. The doctor was considering sending me to the hospital. I looked at my mom and said, "I told you I was sick." My doctor then asked how long I had been sick. I told her over a month. The doctor went off on my mom and threatened to call CPS. My wife brought our very ill son into the ER when he was little. The nurse was giving her all kinds of crap about him not looking so bad and that he's probably fine. My wife's getting tired of the attitude. When the nurse asks, "Has he even thrown up?" as if on cue, my son projectile vomits across her desk and onto the nurse. My wife said she was so proud of our son in that moment. Similar experience. Passed out 8 times one night. Ambulance was called. They came. Didn't examine me at all and said, "It's finals time. You're just stressed." Then left. And I had to take my son to the ER when he was 2 because he was having trouble breathing. The ER doc said he most likely had asthma. So she gave us an inhaler. Flash forward 3 days when we go to have his follow-up with his pediatrician. Dr. Jackass, so, he saw this doctor once in his life and you trusted her to make a lifelong determination that your son has asthma? That's pretty ridiculous. 6 months later. After 3 more visits with my son being unable to breathe. Dr. Jackass, it looks like I owe you an apology. It turns out your son quite likely does have asthma. Surprised he apologized. At least. Yeah, I was shocked. He was a crotchety old military doctor. So pretty par for the course actually. Just for a bit of context. There's currently a problem where lots of people with shortness of breath are being diagnosed with asthma. Without the tests which diagnose asthma, pulmonary function tests, as they are usually performed as an outpatient and can be difficult for young children to properly perform. This results in a lot of people being branded with asthma for life when they might have another illness causing shortness of breath. Not to me, but to my mom. Doctor said, "Oh, just let him hide in the bathroom." I hid in the bathroom when I got really bad headaches that turned out to be due to a brain tumor. Doc must have assumed I was masturbating. New doctor took my height measurement and jots it down before issuing me a very casual, tall for a woman. I am a bearded man. He was just stating a fact. That height would in fact be tall for a woman. I'm so sorry, but this made me laugh so hard. Came in for something totally different and she commented on my stretch marks on my hips and around my breast. I was around 17 years old and had gotten them when I hit puberty because I developed so much in a short amount of time. I explained this to her and she had a whole dialogue with herself about her originally thinking it would have been because I used to be fat. And after my explanation, just lamenting about how sad it was for me that I would have to live my entire life with a body like that. Changed doctor the next day. "I'm so sorry that happened to you. 1 month after I gave birth to my first child, I went to see a new cardiologist. I was there for my heart. But he found it necessary to comment on how many stretch marks I had gotten and how they were unusually bad for a woman so young. Some doctors literally have no clue or insight into patient interaction. Luckily, more degrees are increasing the amount of time spent on developing doctor-patient interaction. I even read some courses are making doctors do a rotation as a nurse, basically to teach some humility and empathy. When my little sister was born, the midwife came to do her 6-week checkup. My sister was plus 10 pounds born and was a very hungry baby. After 6 weeks she looked like a mini Michelin man. The midwife undressed her to put her on the scales, grabbed her chubby little thigh, rolls and all, and said, "Ooh, I see you got your mummy's thighs." We laugh about it now. But at the time my very hormonal mother, who had put on a bit of weight whilst pregnant, was distraught. Where did y'all bury the midwife though? When I was 16 and dealing with partial deafness, sometimes being a teenage girl is hard. But it's hard to parent them too, so there's no need to exaggerate things to make things harder for your parents. Knock it off. There's nothing wrong with you. And 2 tumors, 9 surgeries, and a CSF leak later. Yes, doctor, there really was something wrong. I'd send that doctor a card with images of your tumors to the doctor with a note that reads, "The inadequacy of your professional capabilities is a measurable danger to public health." That needs to be completed with, "Knock it off. There's something wrong with you." Was having digestive issues I eventually learned were a result of my undiagnosed cancer. Doctor suggested I should wipe better. Doctors should heed their own advice. That one sounds full of shiz. Piggybacking with the hope that people will see this. My psych is an MD and said to me once, "Doctors hate being confronted with a problem they can't solve. If you feel like the doctor you see isn't giving you adequate care and consideration, you're entitled to a second opinion." ETA, it's my understanding that many insurances here in the US will cover a second opinion as it's in their best interest to do so. It's less expensive to cover that than it is to pay out due to unnecessary surgery or something that wasn't caught by one doctor. If there's doubt about insurance coverage, call the carrier and ask. Thanks for the silver anon. 3 months-ish pregnant. Start spotting. Spend about 10 hours at the hospital. Vaginal ultrasounds. Lots of diagnostic testing. Nothing they can do. Tell me to go home and wait to miscarry. I'm a wreck. It's now late. Dark and rainy outside. But I don't have a way to get home because hubby is at work with our only car was very young and poor. Doc says the nurses have taxi vouchers they can give me to get home. Go to nurses station. Ask for a taxi voucher. Nurse says, we only give taxi vouchers to women who have living babies. What the actual frick? This took my breath away. I'm so sorry this happened. Jesus. My heart dropped like a rock. Holy frick. That's terrible. That's horrendous. I hope everything is good for you now. I woke up in the hospital and heard a nurse running out saying, he's awake. The doctor comes into the room and tells me to move my toes. I ask them where I am and what's going on. He just gets more insistent that I move your toes. I asked again where I was and that was going on. He almost yells at me, move your toes. I said I am moving my toes. And immediately he says, you will never walk again. That's how I found out I was a paraplegic at 21 years old. I had been in a single car wreck and was thrown 70 to 80 feet from the car and my vertebrae was dislocated and laying next to another one. I don't remember the car wreck, but that exchange with the doctor is burned into my brain. And that was 31 years ago. Holy hell. I'm speechless. I'm so sorry they told you like that. Before surgery on my eye knee, the nurse was telling me how her daughter and I went to the same high school. She then peeked under my gown to look at my dick and let out a small laugh. I was more shocked than offended, but she didn't have to laugh. Or look at my junk. For real, that is incredibly unprofessional. When I was like 5 to 8, mom took me to the dentist and he was stabbing above and under my tongue and the inside of my cheeks and he said, if you cry I'm going to start over. If you start over, you get a turn in the stabby chair. You must have seen my dentist taking my wisdom teeth out. Have an IV put in and am trying to breathe the gas in as fast as I can because I do not like IVs. Doctor comes over and says, if you can't calm down, I'll have to start all over. I cried and backed out. Great way to calm down a kid. Was there a purpose to the stabs or was he just a sadist? That's how you administer lidocaine. But I think the answer is both.